Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Icons of Inspiration. I am your host, Brian Morales. In this episode of Icons of Inspiration, we are thrilled to welcome Candelario Saldaña, an associate in the capital markets group at Cadwalader, Wickersham Taft. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Candelario's expertise and dedication to the legal profession have earned him numerous accolades, including being named Young Lawyer of the Year by the Mecklenburg County Bar in 2022, and recognized as one of the top lawyers under 40 by the Hispanic National Bar Association in 2024. Beyond his legal achievements, Candelario is a passionate advocate for the LGBTQ+ community. He is actively involved in the National LGBTQ+ Bar Association and the National LGBTQ+ Task Force. His inspiring journey and commitment to diversity and inclusion make him a true icon of inspiration. Candelario, welcome to Icons of Inspiration. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me, and thanks for uplifting the voices of our community and to inspire the next generation and inspire those that, I still get inspired by the people that are in my own generation, right? So thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for those words. It's definitely something that, it's a passion project of mine, and I love it. And so far, everybody that has been on the show has really shared some really great stories, and it's really inspiring to see how far we can go. Now, talking about before we get to all your accomplishments and everything that you are today, I'd like for you to take us back, if you would, to your childhood, to your upbringing. I understand that you, for a time, right, not a short period, for a very long time, you weren't a U.S. citizen. What country did you and your family come from originally? And tell us a little bit about that story, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so my mom decided to immigrate to the land of opportunities and pursue an American dream, and mostly did it to give my brother and myself a better education and a better future, right? And so we're from Mexico. I was actually born about 20, 30 minutes away from Puerto Vallarta. So my mom, I was about 2 years old when my mom decided to make that journey to the United States. We ended up in San Diego, undocumented, and was undocumented for 27 years of my life. So went from being undocumented to then eventually under the Obama administration, I was able to qualify for DACA. And then from DACA, I was able to adjust my status to permanent resident, and then I think it's been 3 years. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's been 3 years since I became a U.S. citizen. Time flies, and as we all know, COVID has erased part of our
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. Just one thing that I'll say from the very beginning is that I always tell youth that you can put your dream on pause so long as you never stop dreaming. And it's that pause, right? We all do it for one reason or the other. It's we're pausing it for medical reasons. We're pausing it because of financial reasons. We're pausing it because of family. Whatever that pause is, just never stop dreaming. And I think that's what I lived by, because I obviously had to put my dream on pause because of my undocumented status. I paused right after graduating from the University of Utah for 6 years because I couldn't go to law school, but my dream was always there, and I knew what my dream was, and I kept working towards that dream. And here I am now as an actual attorney. But I do remember being undocumented in junior high school. So that was the first time that I learned what undocumented was. And we were doing our career project, and we were looking at all the careers that we could possibly go into. And I decided that I wanted to be an attorney. I was looking at the dollar symbols, right? So the program that we were using put the careers by dollar amounts, and I looked at the dollar amounts, and it was either doctor or lawyer that made the biggest amounts. And I was like, you know what? I can't be a doctor because I hate science. So I was like, I'll be a lawyer, and I'll actually help my mom out in the process of getting away from this environment that my stepfather had created, one of drug use and actual abuse. And so I was like, I can use that in order to help my mom as well, and then get us out of the poverty that his drug use had put us in. And so with that, I went and told my mom, and I told her that I wanted to be an attorney, and that that was my goal. And this was in junior high, and she sat me down and she said, "Hijo, siéntate. Nunca dejes que nadie te diga que no puedes alcanzar tus sueños. Sin embargo," and it was that "sin embargo" that, however, that led to the next step of her telling me that I was undocumented. And for me, I was like no one else, like everybody else, right? I was like every one of my friends.
Yep.
I didn't know what the difference was. And when she started telling me about all of these limitations, that I possibly wouldn't be able to go to college, that I wouldn't be able to travel, that I possibly wouldn't even be able to get a good job, right? And so it was limiting everything. But yet she was telling me that I could achieve my dreams, right?
Yeah.
Never, don't let anyone tell you that they can't, like that you can't achieve your dreams, like, but you're telling me that I can't, kind of, right? So it was hard. And she also at that point told me that I couldn't tell anyone, that I couldn't tell anyone about our status because we'd be deported. But for me, it was like, why can't I get asked for help, right? Like, why can't I go, like, why can't I tell someone that can help me to achieve the dream that I have set up myself for? And so and especially since my mom had brought me here to give me a better future and a better education, right? I was like, well, why are you telling me I can't go to college if that's what you brought me here for?
That's
Um,
very,
it
yeah.
was it was hard. And unfortunately, well, I guess fortunate for me, I actually was I went and told my counselor about my status, but unfortunately, my counselor in junior high school was unable to help me. And it was because she had very little exposure to undocumented people, right? Or at least known exposure, because that's the other thing, we had to keep it silent, right? And so was unable to help me, but said, keep it in the back of your mind. And then once I got to high school, I brought it up with my counselor again. And my counselor, again, he was unable to help me again, and didn't know any tools or resources to give me in order to continue propelling towards this goal that I had of becoming a lawyer. But the good thing is that I opened up my mouth and I told him about my status. And then he went to a conference at the University of Utah and heard about House Bill 144, which is House Bill 144 in Utah, which allowed undocumented students to go from that graduated from a high school in Utah to go to college and pay in-state tuition. And that also allowed me to apply for scholarships. So he knew that he had someone that was undocumented, and actually took that information and passed it on to me and connected me to the people that I needed to be connected in order to make that transition from high school to undergrad. And had he not known about my status and my desire to go to like a university, he would not have paid attention, right? He would not have, like, that information would have just blown out of his, like, it would have just passed him by. No, like, doesn't apply to me, doesn't apply to any of my students. But because he knew, and because I spoke out, he was able to then give me the resources that I needed to go into to the University of Utah.
Absolutely. Wow, that's incredible. It's a lot to unpack. So I
Yeah.
do want to go a step back real quick and go to the beginning of your story. But one thing that obviously stood out was your mom, and your mom's message, which is so important for everybody, no matter the industry, no matter what your goal is. It's don't stop dreaming. And to your point, even if you have to pause for a moment because either you don't know how to get there, or if you have some type of legal issue, if you're undocumented, your time will come, but don't quit, no matter, and it's never too late. Um, I started this podcast now. I'm about to be 40 here in a couple of years. So it's like, hey, I want to do this. I'm meeting so many incredible people, and we're doing it today. But going back to middle school into high school, and going back to your childhood, if I may, was it specifically your upbringing that made you think about becoming an attorney very specifically, or is it just something that you thought, you know what, I think this is the right path?
It was the financial resources that attorneys have, because like that number stood out to me. Like it was just like I got to be an attorney to get get our household out of poverty, right? Like I mean, my stepfather's drug use was like put us in this impoverished situation, and so I saw that dollar amount, and I was like, well, I can get like my entire family out of poverty making this amount of money. Um, Obviously like the dollar amounts equate to different it doesn't always translate into actual being, right? Because attorneys make a wide range of money. But like when I saw that, I was like, I gotta go and
It was
do
more
that.
of an escape.
It was financial, and then I also like just my mom's like like actual physical abuse, and knowing that like the legal system would allow me to help her. And then later on in life, like it became a more personal issue, because like I knew at that point, as I started learning more about being undocumented, I knew that I wanted to help other people in similar situations. And so it became from like it grew from being this like financial desire to be like get make a lot of money to actually wanting to help people out, because the legal system has the ability to help our communities, whether you're like poor, rich, or whatever, not the legal system's there to help out, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So okay, that's awesome, and I'm very sorry to hear. And I hope your mom today is in a much better place.
Jesus.
Um, yeah, but yeah, now when it comes to you're one thing I do want to because it did stuck out to me. Obviously everybody's situation is different, but sometimes you don't know what you can get, and you don't know what happens until you speak, until you ask. And I think a lot of people, especially in our community, they're afraid to ask. Sometimes, and even in and sometimes, like we get a little bit self-conscious about asking somebody that doesn't look like us. But even sometimes, even when they do look like us, we still don't want to ask. That's like that they're just so afraid of the unknown. Um, so I think that's a very strong message. It's like always raise your hand. Always there's always somebody really good that's always really willing to help to get you out of that situation. Sorry.
Well, and just to interrupt, like real fast, like it's like worst case scenario, that person's going to tell you, I can't help you, right? And you're going to be in the same position as you were. You're not going to be any worse off. Like, so like the only time that you could possibly be worse off is if like someone had like reported me to immigration, right, and my family. Like I would have maybe been worse off, but like at the same time, like that the possibility of that happening is very slim, right? Like no, not especially if someone looks like us and it's part of our community, they're not going to report you as an undocumented person. But asking for help usually puts you either in the same position or actually gets you the help that you need. And so like you said, asking for help is super important. And that person is not able to help you out. They might know someone that knows someone that knows someone that might be able to
Absolutely,
help you out.
absolutely, and I'm huge on that. It's like I tell them, I'm always the first one to raise my hand, but it's like I don't know, but God knows I know a world of people now. Thankfully, that can help you, that can guide you. All right, so now we move forward. Now you're in the University of Utah. You're studying political science and gender studies. Was that choice also just like what you thought you needed to then move forward to law school, or is that something more personal to you as far as what you chose?
So political science was always like it kind of like this prerequisite to go to law school. To find out you don't need political science to go.
All right.
It's like you're fine with whatever degree you go end up doing, but it was more of a just kind of like I thought it was a prerequisite, and so I took political science, and then gender studies for me was more learning about my LGBTQ identity and how I could help LGBTQ individuals out with my studies, and make the world a better place for individuals that identify as LGBTQ. So that was more of a personal the political science. I mean, I do have this slim like just dream and aspiration of maybe one day running for office. But and that'll help out. And I don't know if back then I thought about that, but I think maybe I did, because like my teachers would always tell me I'd be a great president one day, right? Come to find out, I never will be able to be president. But who knows? Like, senator, House of Representative, those are all still positions of power that allow us to make the community or the world a better place for our communities.
Absolutely. Do it. It's never too late, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead and
Right.
do that. We need more representation. Absolutely. Okay, awesome. So now we moved down to Florida. We go to University of Miami to get you out. Tell us about that experience. How was that?
Yeah. So I can I go back one
Sure,
second?
absolutely. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to like talk a little bit about I want to go back to this asking for help, because I had applied for, when I was going from high school to undergrad, I applied for the scholarship through the Chicana Foundation Scholarship Foundation at the University of Utah, and because I was applying to every single thing that I possibly like, that I even remotely qualified for, right? And David Ibarra was make had made a donation that year to give for students um, full ride scholarships to the University of Utah. And he brought up a bunch of this cohort of students that had applied for the Chicano Scholarship Foundation's scholarship. And I was one of those in that cohort. And he spent all lunch and all day with everyone. It was about 30 of us, I want to say. And I was one of those, right? And he like saw me, and after he left, he believed enough in me to say I want him to receive one of my scholarships. But at that point, when he told the committee that he wanted me to be a recipient, he found out that I was undocumented, and his contract said that I would not be able to receive a scholarship because it required US residency or citizenship status. I didn't belong in that, right? So when he found out, he said, from my understanding, he told them, hold on. And then a week later, called them and said that he had ripped that contract and that he was writing a new one to allow me to receive the scholarship. And it was because someone believed in me that I am able to be where I'm at today, right? That I was able to, and the reason why him and I connected afterwards, and the reason why he had put that clause of U.S. resident and permanent resident or U.S. citizen is because he thought that my dream would stop, right? That the dream of an undocumented person, they would, after graduating from undergrad from a university, they wouldn't be able to fulfill the rest of their dream. And he was right to a certain degree, because it did pause me. So I took 6 years off, managed restaurants for 6 years at Del Taco and Cafe Rio. And then I made that big move to Miami after I adjusted my status. And that was one of the, I had never left Utah. I mean, I had traveled here and there, but I had never left Utah from calling it home. And here I was making a big move from Utah all the way to the East Coast to Miami. And that was a huge surprise to me, because it was like Latin Central, right?
Yeah, it's like a culture shock. Absolutely. It's like you're still in the US, but Miami's a whole
Yeah,
different world compared to Utah.
yeah, I was like, I had gone from like very homogenous white culture to like, oh my God, like all we speak is Spanish here. It was definitely a culture shock, and it took me a little bit of adjusting, but it was also great to just continue to explore, because it allowed me to continue to explore my own Hispanic identity. Something that, to be completely honest, I had hidden and tried to even assimilate further than I should have. I remember growing up, and I was like around 15, 16, and using makeup to make my skin color lighter in order to fit in, right? Because I didn't want to be that other. And so, but being in Miami allowed me to just completely embrace myself and embrace my identity and my culture, both on the Latin side and the LGBTQ side as well.
Oh wow. Okay. Wow. That's something that does happen in our community a lot. And there has been people, it's been coming to the, it's been being brought forward, and people are talking about it. That's something that I've been appreciating a lot, especially with social media. I think a lot of people from our generation and the younger generations are, at least they will have that ability to recognize, to appreciate who you are,
Yeah.
and embrace it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it is definitely something that some of our generation and old generations are still dealing with, and it's very unfortunate. But
It's beyond the point of assimilation, right? It's like actually wanting to like be white, and because I mean, ultimately, it's the fact that like discrimination because of skin color is still out there.
yeah, it is. It really is. Well, all right. So we're in Miami. We're studying. We're getting our law degree. How is that? How was that experience at the University of Miami?
You want the truth?
Where were you in life? You stopped working, right? So it was 6 years from when we graduated from University of Utah. What was that for? Once you saw that opportunity open up for you, what were you feeling? And then once you got into it, how was that experience? How easy or how difficult was it? What were the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was finally being able to achieve, like, pursue my dream, right, and actually go to law school was incredible. It was I mean, starting like once I started applying for law schools and receiving those letters, it was a dream come true. And even then, like even when I was making the decision of where to go to law school, I still had immigration challenges come up because I had not signed up for the selective service. And so I had to I was actually accepted with a 95% scholarship to University of Boston, the top rated school, right? And I ended up deciding not to go because they weren't willing to work with me on my selective service issue, whereas the University of Miami was. And so I decided to go to the University of Miami. And then once I put my seat deposit and the seat deposit date went by, believe it or not, the selective service backtracked my registration back to my 18th birthday. But it was too late, and I truly believe that things happen for a reason, and maybe I wouldn't have been successful at Boston University, and here I am at Miami. And to tell you the truth, to me, I just wanted to go to a good school. And when I saw the University of Miami had like an amazing immigration clinic, I decided that it was like the right place for me as well. Now, the challenges were never really understanding financial aid, right? Because there's one thing about our culture as Latin individual. We don't talk about finances all that often, right? It's like a no. So and then being undocumented, no one in in my life had ever gone to a university. And I mean, I had gone to the University of Utah, but I was in a full ride scholarship, right? So I didn't have to take financial aid. And here I was navigating a new world of financial aid without and just taking on the cost of living, because I also had a full ride scholarship to the University of Miami. But you're highly encouraged your first year and even throughout the 3 years to not work. And so I was not working during that time. And so I had a full ride scholarship and still graduated with $102,000 in debt because it was the cost of living of being in Miami for 3 years. And then credit card debt, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, yep.
Those were definitely some challenges and just not knowing the full ramifications of just financial decisions, because I mean, growing up relatively poor, not having financial wealth, right? And one thing that's been on my mind the last several weeks has been generational wealth. And I think it's because we have my nephews for the summer, and so I've been thinking about it more and more. But that was definitely the hardest part of just navigating the finances behind it all, of being able to be in the same kind of caliber as my peers and my classmates, trying to make sure that I had like all the resources that I needed. I know my mom made the financial sacrifice of sending me $300 here and there when she could, and it was like, don't go. Don't go another day with eating ramen noodles,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so it was really like she made the sacrifice because she believed in my dream. And then obviously complete hell. It was like, it was definitely hard work. It required 16, 18-hour days of studying. It would just like, because law school is, at least your first year, is all just one test for each class. You don't have any assignments. It's just you're graded on the one test at the very end of the semester, and that is your grade. You're working hard for that one grade, and then law school and the legal profession is still all about grades. And so, in order to be at the top of your class, you have to work hard, and then in order to get to a big Wall Street law firm or to get a good job out there, you have to be at the top of your class. So, definitely long nights, lack of sleep, but here I am, and doing it all over again.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, and you're obviously doing amazing. I mean, like everybody that I speak to about you, they love you.
Thank you.
Like especially the people at NARAP, they always speak so highly of you. So we know you're doing great things, and you're going to continue to do great things. Um, once you graduate, and what's your first job? What's your first job as an attorney? Where are you? What are you doing? Talk to us about that one.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about so while I'm at the University of Utah, your first summer you go and do an internship, and my first summer was with the Legal Aid Society in New York, and it was in their immigration child unit, and that was like, to me in my head, it was like the dream job, right? Like I was like, oh my God, I'm finally going to go do immigration work. And this is going to be fabulous. And New York was always a dream as well. So I was like, I'll be in New York. I'm going to do immigration. I'm going to be helping people. This is everything I ever wanted, right? So I was in the top of the world. And then that summer was just miserable. And I'll tell you why. It wasn't miserable because of the fact that like I was like doing everything I wanted, but it was miserable because I was having secondhand PTSD from interviewing these children.
Oh,
And it was just so hard to not be able to show emotion in a situation that involved, like, for example, one of my cases was a 10-year-old girl that had been sexually abused by family and neighbors. And I had to interview her over and over and over and over and make her relive that story in order for me to get it correct on paper, and
yeah.
in order to make sure that she was going to be telling the same story in front of an asylum um, representative at USCIS or in front of an immigration judge, right? And that was just so hard because I had to like literally show zero emotion to this
Right.
poor girl that was suffering, right, from having to relive this story. And then on another occasion, I had an LGBTQ, a gay identified male from a Latin American country that also went through sexual abuse. And at that point, I had to excuse myself from the interview. And I went to the bathroom and I cried for 15 minutes. And I just cried and cried. And I came back and I said, oh, like allergy season, right? And this is in the middle of the summer. It's like allergy
Right.
season. Oh, it's like I'm just crying, but I can't tell you that I'm crying. I'm telling you that it's like, so it was just hard. And it was at that point that I made the decision that like immigration work was not the path that I really wanted to take, because I'd have to relive these cases. I'd have to take these cases eventually, right? Especially asylum cases, one of the hardest types of cases out there, because you're having to have these individuals relive their story. And so And that was my first legal job, if you will. And then after that, my grades came out, and I got encouraged to go and apply for OCI, which is on-campus interviews, and those are usually with big Wall Street law firms. And so I told my career development person, I was like, I don't want to do big law. It was never on my radar. And I told her it's going to be LGBTQ advocacy work or immigration work. Probably not immigration work after this summer, but LGBTQ advocacy. And so after 2 phone calls, I kept telling her no, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I need to make money, and Big Wall Street is where it's at. And so I ended up applying for Cadwalader, Wickersham Taft after going to Lavender Law, which is the National LGBTQ Bar Association's yearly conference and career fair. Apologies, my dog is.
No, you're fine.
So I went there in San Francisco, and I interviewed with Cadwalader, and I got a call back, and I ended up taking the summer associate position. And during that, it's 10 weeks of summer pay, and you get paid the same as an associate. And I was like, okay, I can definitely live this. And the one reason why I went to Cadwalader is because I knew after researching and talking to associates that I'd be able to do both, to make the big money and also continue helping individuals on a pro bono basis, because we have an immigration clinic within the firm. We encourage all of our associates to do pro bono. We have an amazing pro bono manager that creates any pro bono opportunity that you can think of, and that you want to do. It's there. And so after that experience, I ended up getting an offer for Cadwalader to come back as an actual associate. And here I am 5 years later, still at Cadwalader, Wickersham Taft.
That's amazing.
So,
oh wow, that's incredible.
It was an amazing
that your whole experience in New York, with the with the interviews, that I could not imagine being able to do that. That sounds heart-wrenching.
It's and the hardest part is that you don't I wasn't offering psychological services to these individuals, right? Because of the resources that legal aid had, there was no therapist involved. And I was like, I'm like, this person needs to go see a therapist right now. I need to go see a therapist. It was hard.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, the heart is there. When we come across these type of stories, I think anybody's first instinct is to want to help, is to want to raise your hand and be like, hey, I want to help you. I want to help you. But it's always more than just simply let's apply. Let's try to be, let's try to become or get our residency or get our our permit. There's always a story behind it. A lot of people always forget or don't remember. It's people don't come here just because they decide and unfortunately a lot of them don't have the resources to come here the legal way, right? Through the legal process as they would want.
I mean, that's a whole
yeah absolutely. But nonetheless, but thankfully there are people that are always willing to help, and wanting to make sure that that they're supported, during those really difficult times. Now, I do want to ask you, so you're very passionate, obviously, about immigration, but also the LGBTQ community. Obviously, you're part of that community. Can you talk to us a little more about your story when it comes to that? Were you open, already? And I ask because, especially, obviously, it's difficult, right? It's always been difficult. There's been some steps moving forward. But within our community, I think we're still a little bit behind on a lot of it. Were you open with your mom? Did your mom know? Or how, when you did tell your mom, how was that reaction? Was this during college? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I came out to my mom when I was 15 years old. So I grew up Pentecostal, and I grew up in, hearing from our pastor how horrible of a sin homosexuality was, and like that it was the greatest sin on earth. And I remember, I don't know if you're religious at all, but in a lot of religions, there's this phrase that if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a
Mhm.
mountain, right?
Sure.
And so I, as a little kid, I mean, it's 9, 10, actually around the age of 10, 11, like this is when we started going to the church. And I kept hearing this, and so like I believed that I had the faith of a mustard seed and more, right? And I remember praying to God to change me and make me normal. And I spent hours and hours as a child begging God to make me normal. And then after years of not like my mind and my I didn't want a little girlfriend, I wanted a little boyfriend. And I was like, you know what, like, so I started seeing other students in high school come out as bisexual, gay, lesbian, and saw that their families were accepting. And I had this like illusion that my mom would also be accepting. And unfortunately, when I came out to my mom at the age of 15, I put a letter on the kitchen counter, letting her know, and came back and she dismissed it. Just didn't really want to talk about it, which was fine. It was better than not like actually like having an argument. And then later on, I think it was a couple weeks or maybe a month or so, me and her got into an argument. And she ended up kicking me out because of my homosexuality. Like pointed out like that she didn't want a maricon in her household. And so I was like, so I got kicked out. And I went and lived with my aunt. So went back into the closet. I told my aunt that that I had left the house because I didn't want to be dealing with my stepdad, but that wasn't the truth. And so went back into the closet. And then eventually um, I went into the closet to my aunt, but then in school I came out to a couple people again because this was like 4 hour drive down in St. George, Utah. And so in school I've always been out, and then for family I chose when to be out and when not to. And then eventually, I mean, I just continued living my true, authentic self as who I was. And eventually, my mom came around. Now, my mom is my best friend, and she came to my wedding, and just has been there all along. It did take a big moment in my life. So, a significant other 17 years ago. So I was around about 20 years old. My significant other at that point committed suicide. And it took that moment in my mom's life to see the pain that I was experiencing and the trauma that I was going through from having lost my um, I think had same-sex marriage had been legal, he would probably have been my husband then, but my boyfriend at that time, right? And and yeah, committed suicide, and just the devastation made my mom realize that it didn't matter who that person was. I was in pain because I loved them, right? And that's when my mom came around and really just apologized, and has been an incredible friend ever since then. And my brother um, went through his own journey of being coming out as bisexual, so born female, transitioned to male, came out as bisexual, then later on came out as lesbian, and then just about 4 years ago, I think maybe a little bit more, transitioned, and my mom and I have been living that journey together, but seeing her be a completely different person and really loving and accepting has been an incredible journey.
That's great. That's
Um,
great.
yeah, it's been amazing. So I know that it's hard to be out, and I think you mentioned something about our culture, right? Like there's still times that like even I, and it's not only the the Hispanic community, but like there's days that I go to meetings where it's predominantly Hispanic individuals, and I feel like sometimes I have to hide my LGBTQ identity, right? But then there's also times that I go to LGBTQ events and I feel like I have to hide my Hispanic identity because of how predominantly white it is. And so it's a hard juggle of having intersectional identities. But ultimately we just have to live our true authentic selves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm extremely happy for you that your mom, has finally come around, and I'm very sorry for your loss. I know it's been some time now, but that stays with you, and I know it stays with you. So but I'm happy. I'm happy that you guys are in a much better place, and I'm happy that your mom is more open-minded. Um, I have a younger brother. He's gay. It's one of those things that it's like I've always known. All the brothers always knew. My parents are still kind of like my parents are Catholic,
Mhm.
uh, and it's difficult. It's one of those for them. It was very interesting because it's like they don't agree with it still, but they're not. But they've never been the types to like push you away either.
Yeah.
It's like when he came out, it's like he left North Carolina, he went to New York, to discover himself and all that. And I was like, okay. When things got financially, tight, he had to come back home, and
Yeah.
he had a boyfriend. My parents let him. They live. They let him in. It's one of those things like, oh yeah, but they wouldn't say that was his boyfriend. Oh, that's his friend. Even though they're always together, they sleep together. It's like that's his friend.
Yeah.
And sort of maintain that way, but I'm happy to at least that they have that, because when I hear a lot of stories, when you see stories of people in that community, and you don't always have supportive parents, like you don't always have that, you don't have anybody to go to, and there are a lot of people in a company that I used to work for. We used to do some community work with man, their organization here in Charlotte, and it's like a shelter for young gay children and trans children. When their parents kick them out, they stay there. They can stay there. They're all minors. I think they're can be older than 18, and it's heartbreaking, man. Man, like seeing them so young. Like sometimes you think, oh, 17-year-old. No, there's like 13-year-olds in there. It's like, who does that? I have a 13-year-old daughter. I could never fathom the idea of kicking my daughter out. And they're homeless, and to potentially keep them homeless, not to go live with your aunt or your grandparents, just completely onto the street. So, and I'm very happy that those type of organizations exist, and they definitely, they need to continue to receive support. Now, I know right now you're part of all these boards that support the LGBT community. Um, you have a lot of accolades that you're being recognized with the work that you've done there. Um, I know where you work, you don't necessarily work with that directly. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've been able to do through these organizations? What initiatives, something that maybe that sticks out to you that you're extremely proud of that you've been able to accomplish um, with your community?
Yeah, so just recently, so about a year ago. So when I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, which was 5 years ago, it's crazy how time flies. So we moved here right after graduating from the University of Miami, because we were highly, both my husband Johnny and I were highly involved in Miami as well, and I knew that I was not going to be able to say no to be participating and stuff. And so I was like, I gotta study for the bar and give the bar exam my complete focus. So we decided to move right after. And so I started studying for the bar exam when we got here, and took the bar exam July 2019. And then immediately after that, I started doing a quick Google search for LGBTQ organizations for attorneys, right? And there wasn't one in Charlotte. And so I connected with an LGBT lesbian attorney, Connie Better, and I connected with her, and I was like, hey, like I'd really love to create this organization to cater to LGBTQ attorneys within North Carolina. And she and I connected with other LGBTQ attorneys, and we established what is now the Polymurray LGBTQ Bar Association. And so we put that together. And so unfortunately, it was we get incorporated in April 2020, which was right at the beginning of
Right. And the pandemic. Yep.
the pandemic. So we were like, well, we can't do much, right? But we still continued meeting virtually, but we didn't have members, we didn't have visibility, right? And so, but we continued on track to just like continue pushing and hoping for the best. And then last year, the North Carolina Bar Association, which is 16,000 members strong, had a SOGI committee, which is a sexual orientation gender identity committee, and they ended up canceling their drag trivia event, stating that they didn't want the SOGI committee or the North Carolina Bar Association to be perceived as advancing the LGBTQ agenda in the world. So
Wow.
which was yeah, it was really hurtful and very homophobic, and so we ended up as a Polyamory LGBTQ Bar Association ended up taking that event and producing it ourselves. And mind you, it was supposed to happen on June 8th. The cancellation happened on May 8th. We decided that we were going to take this event and actually produce it, and that we were going to have the actual resources to put it together about a week after the May 8th cancellation. So we had 3 weeks to actually put this event together. We ended up putting the event together up in the Triangle area at Motorco, and we ended up raising $62,000 in order to support our Lavender Law Scholarship. And that was just a huge accomplishment. To be able to show the world that there is support for LGBTQ individuals, and to show the world that LGBTQ individuals belong in the legal profession, and our culture and our identities should not have to be sacrificed in order to be professional. And so that, and then this year we ended up putting our second annual drag event, which was also I was actually going to wear my shirt, but then with the camera it didn't show. But the theme was actually unapologetically still here, reminding people that we are going to be here without any apology. And so this year we ended up raising $32,000. So total we've raised close to $100,000 just for our lab.
Congratulations! That is amazing.
It's a journey.
That's amazing. That is amazing, and I'm so happy that it's happening. I mean, it's a couple of weeks ago I went to the LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce event, and it's so wonderful. Like it's like why can't everybody just like, guys, come on, this is this you and me. We just love different people. It's the same thing. We're all striving for the same thing. We're all reaching for the same thing. But it was so beautiful to see.
We're also in this thing that we call life, right? We're all in this together. Like it really is. And then I really think that like as marginalized individuals, we should be uniting even further. Like it's like our marginalized identities make us stand out, right? And be vulnerable to attacks.
Do you find if I don't know if inside the association that you help create, if there are other Hispanic gay attorneys that are there, and when you speak to them, do they share similar experiences? Do you see that as not only as a Hispanic but also as a gay individual? Do you see that they share a lot of similar experiences?
Yeah, there are a couple of Hispanic LGBTQ individuals in the organization, and I've connected with them, and I think that it is a very similar, like, it's hard because, like, I mean, the LGBTQ community unfortunately still has a lot of work to do with respect to embracing color, people of color, Black, Hispanic, Asian, and so we have lots of work to do. And the Hispanic community still has a lot of work to do in embracing LGBTQ individuals, right? So it's definitely a struggle that we all face. But I think that also it's also nice to know that other people are in the same struggle with you, right? That you're not alone. And that's, I think, one of the missions of the Polyamory LGBTQ Bar Association is bringing people together to find a solution to the experiences that we face.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to being that we're in the South, being that we're in North Carolina, when it comes to local politics, if you will, and things that, laws that are being. Does your organization, does the association do any work towards that to try to combat that, or is it just more an association to to help other LGBTQ plus attorneys within their industry?
We do speak about the laws that are trying to be put in place within the state, especially laws that are affecting our trans community, which is, I mean, across the country, there's over 500 laws that have been introduced in House in chambers and trying to be passed in order to erase identities and erase rights that LGBTQ individuals have gained. But the majority of those bills that are actually being proposed are actually attacking our trans community. And that's why we've been really vocal about the support for our trans community, but also speaking out about all the laws that are being proposed out there. I mean, drag bans, right? Currently, I mean, even just President Biden making his commentary about gender affirming surgery on minors, right? And so the trans community, I think, is facing a big backlash, and we hope to be a voice, not for them, but to uplift their voices, and because that's oftentimes what is needed.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trans myself, right? And so like I can only support my allyship for them. I know that like my brother would appreciates it as well. But at the same time, uplifting their voices. And I think that's one thing. I mean, your segment here is one thing that you're doing is uplifting voices of people, right? And so that is what we need to be doing is like, yes, we need to speak up at the time that it's our time to speak up, but at the same time we have to uplift voices. So it's definitely something that we aim to continue doing, no matter what the backlash that we get.
Awesome, that's amazing. Candelario, thank you so much for being on. This was again an incredible story. Like, and I'm so happy that you came on the show, because we need more people like you, and we need people that look like us, that look like you, to look at you and be like, look at what he did, look at what he accomplished, look at all the adversity, and look who he is today and everything that he's accomplished. So thank you again so much for being on the show. Hopefully we can have you again in the future, and then we'll call you Senator Saldaña, or Congressman Saldaña. Who knows?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, Brian, thank you so much for one, inviting me, and then also, as I've said multiple times, for uplifting the voices of our community, and for uplifting our actual accomplishments, right? And I think that is one thing that I'll end on, is that one of our biggest forms of resistance, not only for us Hispanics, but also for LGBTQ individuals, is our joy. Our joy is our biggest form of resistance, because if we're happy and if we're accomplishing stuff, people are going to be afraid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.